Logamug. How does a person overcome the anxiety that comes with not being dogmatic? For instance, given your intimate experiences with the subject of Scientology, you can easily and in good faith respond to the two most common retorts of, "That's not real Scientology," or "It would work this time if we just changed X." However, with other religions, economic systems, ideologies, etc., given their diversity and complexity, it just doesn't seem feasible to be able to answer those same two questions with a good degree of certainty, especially given how broad those subjects are and how big their consequences are if true. It is definitely true that critical thinking is useful and easy to apply when it comes to small questions, but when it comes to these big ones, it seems like each person has to choose between action, based on big assumptions and patchy information, or impotence, forever studying. Yeah, this is a bit of a tough one for people, but actually here's a couple pointers or guidelines or something I've sort of used as I've come along with this. This is really why, kind of the answer to your question is sort of why we have authorities or experts in various fields, right? I mean, for you to know everything I know about Scientology would take you years to learn, because it took me years to learn, right? I didn't pick up everything I know about Scientology in a couple months. I spent decades in it. And yet I don't have that same level of familiarity or knowledge about astrophysics, right? But Neil deGrasse Tyson does. That's what he has spent his entire life studying. You have these large fields. You mentioned economic studies, religions, these sorts of things. Every one of the major religions of planet Earth have people who spend their entire life studying them, the history of them, the dogma of them, all the ins and outs of them. And we all can't be expected as critical thinkers to just, assimilate all that information. That's just not realistic. There's a logical fallacy called argument from authority or appeal to authority, which actually means not going to an expert or valid authority on a topic, but it means going to somebody who presents themselves as an authority or who is for some reason you think they're an authority when in fact they are not. And they don't know relevant facts to the questions, the pertinent questions or subject matter that you're taking up, or they are maybe an expert in one field, right? Maybe they're an expert medical doctor, but that doesn't mean they know anything about, I don't know, physics. So if you were to go to, say, Dr. Oz and ask him about, particle physics, he's not really going to be able to talk very intelligently about that. And if you were to rely on that authority figure for your answers on that disrelated field to his area of expertise, you would then be committing that logical fallacy. So you don't want to do that. But when you go to actual authorities, actual people who have spent all those years doing all that study, well, there's no logical fallacy in taking their data and their views on something as the experts that they are. So that is a good fallback to go to as a critical thinker when you are immersed in or learning about or getting into a new field or area that you don't know a whole lot about. You can't be expected to know everything, so you have to rely on experts. You have to rely on this also includes in written work. When you're going to books or the internet, articles, blogs, whatever, are the people who wrote those things knowledgeable enough to be able to talk authoritatively about the subject matter? If they're not, then there's really not a whole lot of use listening to what they have to say about it if you're looking for pure, factual information about it. The other thing about this that I wanted to bring up in answer to this question is the idea of fact versus opinion, because that's another thing about this. And everybody's got opinions. Everybody's got views and ideas and what things they want to say about different topics, even with topics that they're not expert in or don't know a whole lot about. They'll still utter, whatever they're going to utter about it. Your job as a critical thinker is to gauge how much do they know what they're talking about? If they don't know what they're talking about, then skip it. If they do, if they've done research on the topic, if they are presenting information from experts maybe in a compilated form or something like that, I just made that word up, compilated, then you're good, right? Then you're better than going with, Joe the garbage guy, who might be able to give you some amazing information about sanitary conditions and sanitation engineering, but maybe not the guy who's going to be an expert on making donuts or something. So, I don't know, those two things came to mind in answer to this question. This is something I also have been struggling with. I mean, you see some ums and ers and rah, rah, rah about this when I'm answering this question. I guess if I thought about it a lot, I could write out some kind of a more sensible answer, but it is something I've also struggled with, because my struggle has been, now that I've dumped a whole belief system and it's been a few years, what do I adopt as a new one? How do I know what's right and what's wrong? How do I not fall into more cult thinking? How do I avoid any of that? And you just kind of do the best you can. And I've found myself plenty of times going down rabbit holes and falling down into accepting facts that I thought were comfortable for me and were nice for me, but didn't actually end up being true. Facts, right? Because I had to dive deeper and find out that the person who, I've committed every logical fallacy in trying to figure all this stuff out, and I'm still going. So the way that you avoid being dogmatic is you just don't let yourself go into a place where you don't let yourself go to a place where you're not willing to say, I don't know, when you don't know. Those are very important words. And you always leave the door open in your mind, so to speak, as a metaphor, for new information to come in, right? Because that's how you avoid. Dogmatism is more of an attitude than it is a knowledge base, right? It's more of an arrogance or a condescension towards others who may be giving you new information that you don't have. That is the best advice I can give on that. I hope it helps.